no changes in it, so we'll approve them as paired, and then we will sign the poll worker notice for the May 13th. Annual school.
So that notice lists every official that is eligible to work for the, at the polling locations, canvassing ballots, doing election deliveries, election staff, the commissioners, and the clerk staff. It's required by law for us to appoint those every election, and then of course it has the information on it if someone wants to make an objection to any of the election officials listed there.
This goes. How soon does this go?
So what happens is we will take it up to Becky's office today. Today is the deadline for the commission to sign. We'll take it to Becky's office. Becky signs it as well. And then on Monday, it gets posted in Becky's office, and that starts the 10-day objection period. So yeah, so we have these banners that I have prepared, and it'll go up in one of these banners into Becky's office.
Okay.
And the banners also include the notice of election, just the basic election information, and then of course the sample ballots will post up there as well. So that kind of starts getting the public more information.
And more aware that there is going to be an election.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've signed that, signed the logic and accuracy certification.
So that is our testing to prove that a vote for candidate A reflects a vote for candidate A, that every precinct is aligned correctly. And so that we've done a thorough test of everything. And we also were able to get the poll book data as well. So we proved the poll book data so that when it prints out a ballot, it actually pulls up the correct ballot. And so everything has been thoroughly tested. This also gets filed with the county clerk's office. In the case of a recount election, that's the first document we would give to a candidate who requests a recount.
You have a copy?
No, I think that's.
Okay. Guys haven't just been twiddling your thumbs here. You've been doing some things.
We've also been coordinating with the candidates who are doing election by candidate. I still have two that I don't have scheduled because I have to schedule a time for them to come to the clerk's office. So we have that in that process. We did poll worker training last week, and I have one more poll worker training class for Farmington. But yeah, so just kind of, working our way through all the steps for every election. We've already started kind of prep work too for the primary, just kind of always thinking ahead. And then of course, getting ready for the legislative impact that we'll deal with after this election.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, I was thinking there will be some things there, won't there?
Yeah, and I know we don't want to get into it today, but should we set up a meeting to talk about bills that pass?
I think we should, after the school election, I think we should set up a meeting to discuss the different bills that pass, because in 2023, there was legislation that impacted election commission and staff, like our process, like testing, all of that. This election or this cycle, there's actually bills that pass that impact voters. And I definitely think we need to start talking about that to get information out to voters about those changes that you will see at the polls for the primary election. But I don't want to confuse voters because those laws aren't enacted for the school election. So I feel like we want to wait till after the school election so that we're not having discussions on things that won't impact them.
Well, how many things that pass does the SBEC need to, promulgate rules on? Is there,
There are two that have very specific language that the SEC will have to promulgate rules.
yeah,
I believe that there's at least 4 to 5 more that will require at least, if not a rule, but some type of judgment from the SBEC. One of them in particular is the polling place for early vote in a city that's over 15,000. There's no guidelines for that. Is it a day, is it 2 weeks, what is it? So there's different things that I think that, definitely the SBC is going to have to give guidance on, or, that aren't specifically listed as them having to create. So.
I agree about waiting until after the election, not to confuse people, but I also agree that probably it's not too early to start talking about some of this.
Oh,
It's gonna-
absolutely.
Yeah, if it's gonna impact voters, I mean, getting word out to people, so I kind of feel like, fairly quickly after that election, maybe we should be talk about it.
Now. So. We will have a meeting scheduled on the 15th.
okay,
That meeting is typically just set up for a
Okay.
provisional ballot review. The odds of us having a long list of provisional ballots is very small.
Yeah.
We could start the conversation
Sure.
then, because the election's over. There is no runoff election.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to worry,
Okay.
about prepping ballots and all of that. So definitely, I feel like that could be a topic for the 15th. I already have, if you notice, I sent out notes
Yeah.
about all the legislation already, so it's not an extra something I need to, that will be hard for me to get together
right,
for us to have on the 15th, if we want to add that as a topic of conversation for
Yeah.
that meeting.
let's make that the main topic at that point.
I agree, flip through the provisions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're already,
Yeah, exactly. I agree, that's a great idea.
Okay.
sounds good, okay. All right, let's talk about provisional ballot process.
So, this came to me twofold. One, I always like for a school election, if we're gonna have process changes, to try and introduce it in a small
Yeah.
election and see how it would work. After the general election, and we had over 900 provisional ballots, or that we had to process, get letters out to the voters, and then, of course, you had a delay because you have a federal holiday in there where the mail doesn't run. We got feedback from voters who received their letters after the hearing date. So, but with the constraints that we're under, and with the fact that the mail service is what mail service is these days, and we have a holiday in there, I was like, what can we do to get that information to the voters in a more timely manner? So that if they, want to check on the status of their provisional ballot, they can do so without having to wait for the mail. We are still required to mail out a letter, and we will do that. This is not changing that process in any way, but this would just be an addition to what we would currently do. So in the letter, that I have, that would be handed to the voter, it would give them this provisional ballot hearing letter. It would give them a QR code that they
Oh,
could
yeah.
scan, that would take them, and it's not great quality because I haven't published the website yet.
Yeah.
But it would take them to this page that would tell them more about the election, the provisional ballot process. Then they would be able to see at the bottom the list of everybody who voted a provisional and the status of their provisional ballot. We would have this posted by the Monday following the election afternoon, because we would have to wait for those voters who come in and show their photo ID. So we could have it fully updated. I already have to create an Excel list with all this information anyway, so basically it would just be me popping that Excel list onto this page.
Would we have to wait though? I mean, for that Monday, I mean, couldn't we just put those folks too? who didn't show their ID?
So what I don't want is set expectations of having complete answers. We need to give staff time to be able to get it posted on there. And if I can post it early, I will post it early, but this would be the deadline that we would have it posted. Does that make?
That's fine, yeah, no, that's fine, yeah, that's.
Yeah, after, that Friday, if I have all the information and everything, I'll post what I have and then I can update. But this is a deadline.
Yeah.
This is like,
That's fine,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, because it would be active as we go along. But this would be what the website would look like. This would be the information. All of this information is voidable. So I'm not placing information on there that's not voidable. However, I am not putting their addresses or their date of birth. I don't think that's necessary to put on there, but I am putting the pollings that they voted on, just so that's kind of a reminder, hey, that's where you voted at, the reason, whether it counted or not, and then the notes that we have, because we always have notes on why voted provisional. So it just be another tool for us for the voters.
I'm asking, and I don't know that this is crucial, but putting the phone number on there, isn't that the first thing people are gonna check on? I mean, they're gonna start calling you instead of looking on the list.
We've always had the phone number listed on the letter.
Okay,
That's a way for them to call if they don't have an email,
right,
we have to give them an opportunity to be able to contact us.
okay,
So the phone number has always been
okay,
on there. That's not new. That's not new.
okay.
But
I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's just getting the information out there to people. If they want to check and see if their ballot is counted, if they cast a provisional ballot, this is the way to be able to do it in an effective way, right?
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was just like, how can I get ahead of that problem? Because we're going to have it again for the general election in
Yeah.
2026, because November 11th is always in that time frame. And so I know that this is a recurring problem. I can also expand this to also include absentee ballots that were rejected for lack of ID. This will be a way for us to get that information out
Yeah,
there
that would be
in a
great.
more timely manner as well. So I just feel like I can expand on what I'm doing, but I wanted to bring this to the commission first before I just started getting this published, so.
Well, it might actually alleviate, if you've got a yes on there, might alleviate phone calls or anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So, whether it's provisional or absentee.
I mean, the mail is less timely than it used to be, and the timing just doesn't work out to be able to get voters notice before they're hearing whether their ballot's counted or not. So, just lets them check if they want.
so, and in regards to absentee ballots, a lot of times voters can go to voter view and they can see that their absentee ballot was scanned into the clerk's office. But that doesn't tell them if their ballot counted or didn't count. So I feel like if I expand this to include absentee ballots for those that did not count, so if you don't find your name on the list, then that means that your absentee ballot counted. You find your name on this list, and that means you didn't. Now, we will still send letters. We're still required to do that. I'm not saying that, but it's just one more tool, I think, for us to let voters know. And the other problem I ran into with the provisional ballots for the general election, there was that race that was so close. And I spent so much time with people calling in, wanting to know the names of the voters who voted provisional because they were trying to contact them to get them to show their IDs. And that just, I felt like it's information I want to provide, but I was constantly having to get that out there. If we can let people know, hey, here's the list, it's when it's going to be available, here's the information, I just feel like it's a win for everyone.
Totally agree. Thanks for thinking about it and putting it together.
I would, I mean, do we need to vote on proceeding or?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of a structural question, I guess. As soon as I look at these two, reason number one, started looking for reason number two. So is there a reason, is there a reason that we're saying reason one is?
So,
I agree, it's a good question. I thought the same thing.
alright, so on our provisional ballot envelope, which you guys don't have in front of you, reason one is, no proof of ID, all other reasons. That reason one is for my poll workers. My poll workers have to check this, and that lets them know they checked reason one here, they checked reason one there. Now, on this, I can change that, because obviously it's not for our poll workers. But for this letter, because our poll workers are marking that, that's just one more reminder for them that that's the one you need to check.
Reason one and all of the.
Yeah.
One has additional language, hence the color. I can.
Yeah.
All other reasons is underlined for some reason.
And I can change that, that's just probably formatting.
On this one. Put reason, the difference in front of it.
Well, I think that's what I'll do, is take reason one off. And then because that line says for provisional ballots unrelated to verification of registration.
But you might do something more to separate these as, you know, right now, I mean, I was thinking that, you know, it just all kind of runs together. And my other question, I guess, to that extent is this information needed on this document?
I just felt it was one more place for voters to get the information on when the hearing was, especially for those who, I know I get that it's on the letter, but I can certainly add more space in here. It looks a little different when you actually look at it online, but since I don't have it published, I had to do a snippet of it. But I can go in and add all the reasons here of why they might have voted a provisional. That might break it up a little bit more.
Again, briefly walk me through how these two documents.
Okay,
Sorry
so,
for the time,
no, this one is handed to the voter at the polls
but
when they vote a provisional. So they leave and they have this.
And it already has marked on it either
Yeah.
reason
And we-
one or all
Yeah.
other reasons.
And we mark.
And they've got a QR code to take further action.
This will be on the website.
Okay.
And so I just went ahead and put the information on there, so if the voter took the time to go to the website, it's just one more reminder of, I need to take my ID in, or here is the hearing date.
Or my ballot was counted or not.
Yes.
That's the
That's,
thing, too, right?
that's the purpose of this, having this on the,
Mhm.
for them to know if they're not
Yeah.
counted or not.
Yeah,
And whether they have to go to the hearing or not.
and whether they have to go to the hearing or not. Or when the hearing is, and because if they're a no, then if they want to attend the hearing. Now, I can flip this and put the list first and then the information below, if you think that
Don't be
would.
multiple pages anyway.
It'll just be one long page. It'll just be like what you would see
But
on
if you
your
just
screen.
print it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're printing it out, though, that means you're not a voter. That means you're a person who's looking to see who is on the list. But for a voter, they're just going to go look to find my name, did my ballot count? What was the reason it counted or didn't count?
I would at least, I think, flip that,
Okay,
with this information, which it could be argued that this information is not necessary to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Right.
So I would go with what you want to accomplish first.
okay.
Yeah.
So I would do the list at the top.
Yeah.
And then follow with the information for at the bottom.
And something like on the homepage, it's a simple question or like, did my provisional or absentee ballot count?
Yeah,
Like something like that, like I'd look for that as a voter, just click that, oh, I can check, you know?
right.
Cause some of this language is just, I mean, it's legalese.
It's good language, I mean, it's good to know that, but I'm afraid that we make things too complex, too complicated.
Yeah.
Sometimes, in an effort to make it better and make it more informative. I'm thinking of myself,
Sure,
I'm more auditory and, you know, I read something like this, my eyes start to cross. I start to wonder what the doctor did.
I understand, yeah, I don't disagree about simplifying.
Lazy, no.
language. Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I will flip it to where that the names are listed first and then the supporting information
Yeah,
is underneath, so.
and
cool,
yeah, I'm thinking that hearing date stuff needs to be red or something.
Well, okay, if this is, I can't, like I said, I can't truly print this until I publish, but I didn't want to publish until
Right,
the commission looked at, because then it's out there.
yeah,
And if you guys hated the idea, and then all of a sudden it disappeared, then I've got a problem. So, but yeah. Let's see. The other thing too that I've been working on is, if you'll notice, you've got a little ballot that already has a little, square on it. So even though our poll workers did an amazing job of doing almost all provisionals out of the poll book, which automatically prints the little square and the P that prevents it from going into the BS 200. There were still
oh, really?
that one got in there because they didn't issue it out of the poll book. So you can just do them manually. So you call the clerk gives you the information. So I talked with Deborah about, can we make ballots that already have this on there? And that way, if for some reason they don't put them through the poll book, they issue them a provisional, it won't read. And we tested it and it works. So what we will do is in the provisional ballot envelope that the poll worker gets to process the voter, this ballot will be in here.
Already there.
This
okay,
will be the ballot they use. So if they put it through the poll book, it just reprints over that square, no harm, no foul. It still works exactly the way it's supposed to. If they just do a manual one, which they can do, there's no problem with that. We have this already pre-printed on there. It will prevent it from going into the DS 200.
they just have to make sure to use the one that's already in.
They always use the one that's in here.
They already
do.
trained that.
They are trained that
Okay,
way.
that's great,
Because they used to have the green stripe at the bottom, that's how it
Oh,
first
yeah.
started.
yeah,
So this is better,
yeah,
because the green stripe was just saying, hey, that one's not supposed to go into the DS 200. But this prevents it from going into the DS 200.
yeah, that's great.
So I worked with Deborah and she was able to actually recreate this for us.
That's good.
So we will be able to do that for all of our provisional ballots.
Mhm.
So it's just one other layer for us.
Yeah, well done.
There's a P on the one.
So that's how we know the one is issued from the poll book, because
Oh,
it prints, because
okay,
it prints the P
okay.
on the bottom.
And
When
if
it doesn't have it on there, then we know that they did a manual one.
Yeah.
So it's still,
an extra check,
it's just more information for
Yeah.
us. this. When you're looking on the. When you're looking on the web page, this is what it will look like. As you scroll down. So it won't be multiple pages, it will just be a scroll down. Yeah, so I can move this to the top
Yeah.
and then put the other information down. And if you'll notice on here, it does look more separate. That is, I just kind of did a snippet so you could actually see what it looked like. But I can, and then right now I just have a provisional ballot information, but on our home page, I can put, hey, check to see if you're provisional ballot or do, you know.
There's two things.
Making that provisional ballot status.
Yeah, no, I can make that whatever you
Yeah,
guys want
that's
me
great, yeah.
to make it to stay. So yeah,
I think we've got two questions. First is, am I on the provisional ballot list or the absentee list? And the second one is, did my vote count?
right, and I think on the home page, I would put on I don't want to put did my vote
Yeah,
count
do
without
something
the
like that.
qualifier
Right.
of provisional, because then people
Yeah.
still call us, even though they didn't vote a provisional, and they're like, how do I know that my vote counted? And I'm like, well, did you vote a provisional? No. And I'm like, well, then your vote counted. So I want to be careful, so
Right, but that's the.
yeah, but that'll be the gist of it.
Yeah,
Okay. And then I'll do a separate page for absentee.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that is long, this.
Yeah.
So it'd be two buttons on the homepage. Did my absentee ballot count? Did my provisional ballot count?
Yeah.
Two separate.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Cool.
So,
I think you're getting it.
No, I think it's a really good idea though, because we track everything, right? I mean, Amazon packages.
Yeah, that's true.
UPS,
Yeah.
everything online, and this just gives people a way to.
Got it tracked, let's give them.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
And it's all connected to the QR code.
yeah,
Actually,
if you scan that QR code now, though, it just takes you to
Right.
Google Maps.
Right.
But
but if you,
maybe your placeholder.
you could do a separate one for absentee.
I will. Yeah, so I'll do a separate one for absentees, and everything, but I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling to test it for this election to see how it worked, to get the information out there, and then for the primary.
Yeah.
You know, really
It's
get that
time to do it.
information for the voters, it's another place for them to look.
Right.
So, okay.
Good work there, Jennifer.
Mhm.
This is monumental task.
Put in a new bill that she's supposed to.
Okay, well, we will proceed with that
Okay.
and, look forward to other iterations of it. Next is assisted voter process.
So this one, is going to be the start of the new assisted voter law.
Yeah.
So I just have done like what I consider a soft rollout on this with my poll workers by introducing having the assisted voter card filled out at the check-in.
Now, let's back up a minute. This is a law that is going into effect, but you are going to test it at this point.
I'm not testing the full law.
Oh, okay,
The full law
Yeah.
is them having to show ID.
okay.
And
Oh,
so when I
okay.
rolled this out to my poll workers, I simply rolled it out as we are now checking in assisted voters at the check-in. That's it. That's how I left it.
Okay.
And, so they will now, this little thing here for the voter, not that voters read these, but we have them. If they see it, we'll set on top of the little printer for this. If they need assistance, our poll workers will fill out the card of the name of the voter who's being assisted, the name of the person who's assisting, and the address. That's current law. That is current law.
This card is.
This current law is current law. They will do that at the check-in.
Okay.
Now, then they will give this little card to the voter along with their ballot, so that when they get over to the express vote, when the poll worker puts them into the express vote, and there's two people there, This lets the poll worker know they've already filled out the card. They don't have to do anything else with it this far.
This is new. This
Yeah,
little-
this is new.
Okay,
And so that way they know the card has already been filled out.
Mhm.
Now, if they're over at the express vote and a poll worker has to assist, the poll workers at the express vote, it takes two, will fill out the card there. But that's a different scenario than when someone brings someone.
wait, what, when would that happen?
So let's say I'm an individual and I come in and I didn't bring anyone with me to assist me. But I get over to the express vote and I need assistance. Then two poll workers can assist me.
Yeah.
And those two poll workers would fill out the card there over at the
The
express.
poll
vote.
workers themselves have
Yeah.
to fill out
Yes.
that card, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So, but now let's say that, my son comes with me and we're at the check-in and he's going to assist me at the express vote.
Yeah,
At the check-in, the poll worker will fill out the name of the voter who's assisted, the name of the person assisting, the address, and, then just complete the card there.
Okay.
Then they'll give this and the ballot, and then they'll go, and that way this lets the express vote poll worker know they have already completed the card.
do you have to have one of these little blue cards in order to go to an express vote with another person?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, continue, yeah,
So, but basically that's setting us up
yeah,
for how the new law is gonna work.
and what else does the new law require?
So when we get into the new law will require anyone who's over the age of 18 that is assisting another voter has to show ID.
How do they know someone is over the age of 18? They mean.
So these are going to be the rules that are promulgated by the SBEC.
Okay.
So how that is ascertained, whether they can ask the question, I don't know.
We don't know at this.
We don't know, but at the very least, what we do know is that the poll worker who is doing the check-in will be asking for if they are being assisted for ID.
If
Yeah.
they are over 18, if the basis for which will be determined.
Yes.
Okay.
If they show an approved photo ID that is on the same list as our regular approved photo IDs, the poll worker can complete the process. If they show an ID that is different, like in Oklahoma driver's license,
Sure.
where they don't have ID, they're going to have to see the supervisor.
What,
So this.
what happens then? I know you have a question.
Yeah,
You
go
can
ahead.
jump in.
Yeah.
So
no, go
what
ahead.
happens is they will fill out a form that's similar to this that shows.
But
no-
different.
But different. So that is to be determined and to be worked out.
That form has not yet been
Has
created.
not been done. But at the very least, I want my poll workers to get used to the fact that they're going to be at the check-in
Yeah,
doing the assisted voter card.
Okay, now. This does not prevent. Wrong. Does not prevent a mother with a 16-year-old child from coming in.
No.
Okay,
No, it doesn't.
and they won't have to,
No. If the 16-year-old child is not assisting,
well,
then
wait,
no, but if the 16-year-old is assisting, let's say it's a language thing.
yes,
There will be rules.
but we don't know what those are.
but, yeah, but wait, how do they know, how does the poll worker know whether they're gonna be assisting? And if they're not assisting, can that 16-year-old just go over to the voting machine with them? Cause you know, somebody's bringing their 16-year-old,
Yeah, I
hey,
used to always
this is
do
how
that.
you vote, yeah.
I used to bring my 10-year-old.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But like, so wait, is the poll worker gonna have to determine that, whether the person is assisting or gonna assist?
So these are all questions to be answered.
Okay.
But what I wanted to do was to get my poll workers used to the idea of this will be a new task that they have to.
Yeah,
complete
That's
at the
great to
check-in.
do that, I think, very
But
wise.
it's just, like I said, when I talked about it in class, That is all I talked about.
Right.
This is just moving the assisted voter card to the check-in. Because what worries me, if we do it out with the express vote operators, having the CIDs out there. And a lot of times your poll worker, who is your check-in person, is your more experienced poll worker. They're the ones who know what IDs are accepted, what IDs aren't accepted. So it needs to be here.
So it's helping, it's not gonna get to the express, level, it's taken care of before then.
Right. Now, we'll have a contingency plan if for some reason the check-in person didn't realize, you know, and they'll have extra, it's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's gonna be,
Even with significant training, there's no way out in the field, this is not an absolute best at some of the polling locations.
yeah. So we will do our very best to make, you know, to make it as easy and simplified as we can. So yes,
It's not gonna be simple.
so the white card, Renee,
Yeah.
that you have, we have been using this card for a while.
Oh, okay.
This white card, we have had at the check-in station previously, so this part is not new, but this white card is for a voter who has a speech impediment, a hearing, deficiency, or, you know, can't say their information out loud. We're not allowed to use their
Okay.
IDs to get their address and their date of birth, so we have very successfully introduced this card
Yeah.
and used it at our polling location for those voters who need to actually write the information down and can't state it.
For some reason, the non-verbal,
Yeah,
this replaces verbal.
Yeah.
Information.
and we've gotten a
That
lot
makes
of
sense.
compliments from people who come into the polls and have used this.
Okay, let me ask you
Does
this.
does the poll worker complete this, or?
The voter does,
The voter.
because the idea is the voter has to give us the information. And so this is a way for the voter to give us the information.
We've talked about this in the past, that there are some voters who are uncomfortable verbalizing their information. Would they be able to use that?
We let them,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
because the one thing we can't do is use their ID
Yeah.
for the information. So if there's that voter who doesn't want to state their
Yeah.
birthday out loud, or doesn't want
Right.
to state their address out loud, and they're just going to just like be bullheaded about it, and just like, I'm not doing it for whatever reason,
So once
they
they've
can fill
done
this
that,
out.
what happens?
What happens to the
This,
card?
this stays with the assisted voter information. So
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Is this an assisted voter thing too?
we treat it, for simplification, we treat it as this was an assist to the voter. And so, because when I talk about where forms need to come back, I didn't want to add one more bag. So they know this just goes in the bag with the assisted voter cards.
Okay, so it comes back,
Yes,
but in the long run, what happens to that?
they're just stored.
Just go-
Yeah, they're just stored for the 2 years that were required
And then,
of store. Yeah, so.
let me ask a question about the blue card, if I may. Want to confirm that once you have the voter's name, voter who's being assisted name, everything else, this and this, one or the other.
Mhm.
They either having someone assisting or, they get through the election.
Yeah,
And this is fine for training, but in the long run, you might want to take the voter, name of voter assisted out and put it all the way across the top and make these two separate blocks. Because the voter's name is going to go with either one, right?
no, you're right. So I have blue paper when they do that for this election. So, but yeah, no, that's a good point on that. So, yeah,
Okay, you're still writing the names on the list. Is that correct?
so
Or does this
this is the list.
substitute?
Yes,
Okay,
because otherwise, we started using the cards during COVID. Because then everybody's writing on the same list, and our poll workers and for the voters actually like the cards better, because then you're not seeing everybody's name of like average changes. Exactly. And
Okay.
so this keeps it individualized.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so we're doing away with that list then.
Well, this is the list
Yeah,
essentially,
but-
yes. Now, we are working with, ESNS, and I need to just work along with the state board as well. Our poll books actually have a screen in them that you can use for the assisted voter card. And that is my preferred method if we can get that added
Versus this,
versus this.
well, for sure.
Yeah.
Then it's
So
Less
Texas
paper.
already uses
Yeah.
it.
electronic.
So basically, it's just an additional screen in the poll book where, hey, if you're being assisted, this is where you fill out the
Yeah.
information.
Yes,
That's my preferred plan.
can you do that?
So yes, we can, but the question is, will ESNS just do it for one county or does it have to be a rollout for all 75 counties? Mine- Well, or just a different setup.
Or
My
additional-
push,
Or additional cost?
it's no cost. Yeah, there's no cost, but I do think that, yeah, right. I do think that it needs to be something that we need to push for statewide.
Do it.
Have
Yeah.
that in the whole book, it will alleviate so much of this
Right.
kind of,
Talk to the SBDC, give them a heads
Yeah.
up when they're writing their rules.
Is the program set up where if somebody assists or tries to assist more than six, they
so
get
that's the beauty of it. I
Okay.
can run a report
Yeah,
every day out of Connect that shows the names of people who have been assisting
okay,
and been assisted. So it serves a lot
Right.
of purposes if we can do it out of the poll book.
yeah,
And that's my preferred option. Now, you still are gonna have to come up with a way to have an option for not doing it in the poll book, but that would be my push, is to do them all through the poll book. So, yeah.
The Max's comment about, having the SPC, help with us or somebody, when they start promulgating these rules. I would think that they would have done that without us asking, but I should ask.
They have been, we've been in communication
Good.
with this. And there will be a period when they do the rules where there's a 30-day comment period. But I'm hoping that when the rules are created, that they're like, oh yeah, these look really good.
You can get in
They
there.
can minimize, problems with the 30-day comment period if they get the comments in.
Yeah.
We completely agree. We want to be in there telling them, giving them suggestions before the comments even, you know.
Don't just talk to the clerks, talk to us.
Right, because the clerks don't do this. So, yeah, so, but like I said, I've been working with John Moody. He has sent us screenshots of what the screen will look like in the poll book.
Yeah.
I had wanted to do it for the school election this year to kind of do a little rollout on it, but, they were a little hesitant on trying to set up two different ones or two different counties. So, yeah, so. Okay.
all right, well, you're working on it. Let's move on to the March 3rd, 2026 preferential primary.
So I can't believe we're already talking about
I know.
primary. So obviously, calendar dates will move up. I will get a calendar created for us. We will actually start having meetings in November. That's when filing starts. We'll have ballot draw, that type of thing. One thing we will want to discuss sometime over the summer before we get to the filing is early vote and election day sites. One of the new laws that passed requires, not that we didn't do this every time, but now actually requires early vote sites to be decided for every election. In the past, it was kind of implied that if the commission didn't vote to change it, they stayed the same as from the previous year's primary or general.
Uh-huh.
But one of the new laws requires the commission to actually take action every year to determine the early vote sites.
I mean,
So
we did anyway, right?
we
approved
did, it wasn't
Voting
ever,
sites anyway.
we did, because they often changed and the dates and times changed. We never had anything that was 100% exactly the same.
Right.
But with that in mind, we do want to kind of figure out what our early vote sites are. And of course, that one about the 15,000, having one in a city of 15,000.
But it's not gonna impact us
No.
necessarily unless they make, what, Farmington be 2 weeks? Or
Well,
something like that?
that's my only fear is if it has to be open for the full time period on Saturdays and the Monday before, we are gonna have a problem. I don't think it does because it's offsite voting and the commission sets offsite voting. But, they certainly did say in the law, is it a day, is it 2 days, 3 days, those kind of things, so. But we will have some meetings, I think, in the summer to just kind of preliminary, kind of get a feel for early vote, sites, election day sites, that type of thing. Training dates, of course, will be moved up. I think, probably by November, you will have commissioner training in November, I would think. October, I think it's gonna be coordinator training. And then I would expect that, commissioner training will be in November. Poll workers. I already know that I will be replacing at least 4 to 5 supervisors for this, for primary, just they retired, they're like, done. So we will start actively recruiting, in August of this year. We'll do that. There's a national poll worker recruitment day that actually worked kind of well for us last year. We got a lot of people who came in. So we'll actively start recruiting and getting with our poll workers, who's working, who's not working, that type of thing. So, we know we have all of that in the works as well. And then we have one more wrinkle to the primary election. So candidates have already started putting their information out there on who's running, who's gonna file, actively campaigning. And so we have one candidate who is related to, one of our staff members. So, so we will, and it was, I looked at the rules.
Good, that's what
Yes, I looked at the rules. And I looked at the rules for, commissioners. And so, it is, you cannot be married or related, or you can be married to or related within the second degree of consanguinity to a candidate running for office in the election. If a written, you must not be married to or related within the second degree of consanguinity to a candidate running for office in the election if a written objection is made within 10 days after the list is posted.
After the list.
After the list is posted.
That's the timing.
That's the timing.
Okay.
So yes. So
When does the list get posted?
the list gets posted the Monday before early voting starts.
So we're talking about February?
So, yes, so
Okay,
essentially,
yeah, like February. Okay.
yes. So essentially, it would be,
23rd.
yeah. So,
That's when the list gets posted.
well, no, the list will get posted February the 9th.
Okay,
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
so
So,
that's when the time period that's
yes,
implicated.
that someone could make an objection.
Okay,
So basically, what we will work around the parameters is now. We know that not one individual can change the outcome of election. And we've never, it's just not possible. But with regards to elections, I want us to be as open and transparent as possible. And to note that this is the discussion with, that we need to have in order, because this is a staff member, it's not a poll worker, it is a staff member.
A year ahead of time.
Yes, and so with that being said, I feel confident that there is nothing that compromises the election process in any way with continuing to have the staff member work unless an objection is made. If an objection is made, then
That answers the
that
question.
answers the question.
Yeah.
And that time period again for the objection doesn't start until like February. not
February,
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
And we haven't got filing.
right.
Yeah.
It's in November, right?
Yeah.
So whoever the candidate running hasn't even officially filed to run for office.
Right.
They have not, the candidate
Yes, right.
the candidate has filed paperwork showing that they
Intent.
are going to intend to be a candidate
Mhm.
and are actively fundraising.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the candidate is also, actively campaigning, Facebook, just different things like that. So what we don't want is, we don't want to be naive to think that no one is gonna put two and two together. And then we have a situation where we have not addressed what's gonna happen.
Right.
So, yeah.
Filing begins when?
Filing begins November the 3rd, I believe. Yes, filing begins November the 3rd
Okay.
and runs through, and this is something we're having to double check. Technically, it runs through November the 11th,
Oh, but there's a.
but that's a holiday, so I think it might run through November the 12th.
Okay.
So, but we're double checking to see those dates. And the other catch to this situation is this employee will be retiring. And then we will be rehiring that employee in December. So I don't want there to be any appearance of the rehiring is due to the fact that they're related to or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's just a matter of the institutional knowledge that she brings to the office to,
Questions
All
of
of that.
logistics.
yes. So, but I want us to be fully aware and transparent
Yeah.
of everything.
So the relationship does fall within that.
It does. So when I first looked in 2018, so I had this saved in my computer. And I thought that, okay, it's the 3rd, but I looked in our commissioner's handbook and, ants fall within the 2nd.
Do we need a legal opinion?
I visited with Chris, about this, at the state board, and it's not until an objection is made. So it's,
Do we need a county legal opinion? Chris used to say, talk to your,
sure. Sure, if we thought we were doing something outside
Yeah.
of what the law, or not sure what the law is, I definitely can ask for that opinion. But I feel like, so this is from the County Board of Elections Commissioners Handbook. And this is the definitions of who can serve as a commissioner. Same thing applies for election officials. And this is,
where does it say something about?
if I pull up the election officials, it's the same thing. However, I feel like for this instance, we would want to treat a staff member as the highest level
Right.
of who can serve and who can't serve. So that would be a commissioner.
So did you mention that, those requirements have changed since 2018?
So it's not the
Or-
requirement that changed, it was their chart that changed.
To
But
make it clearer?
I don't know if it makes it clear, it expands
Oh,
the group. So in 2018, the group was, children and parents were in the first level, and then grandchildren, brothers and sisters and grandparents were in the second, and aunts and uncles were in the third. But then when I looked in 2024, it had expanded to nephews in the second, aunts in the second. So I then did more digging, and this is in the law for, computing degrees of consanguinity. And,
That's from this law right here.
no, this is actually from inheritance law, because I figured the state had to have a standard of what is considered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty established.
Yeah, so when you look at that law, it specifically states, nephew, they use the term nephew, but I'm assuming it would apply to
Yeah.
these too.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, right here.
I don't know, this disqualifications on the county board of election commissioners, gives that language that you read, but references, the law. APA 7-4-109 D. It might be worthwhile.
That is what the law is, yeah, it is, yeah.
Look that up, Harvey.
7-4-109 D.
7-4-109 D.
Yeah, a person shall not serve as an election official if the person is married to or related within the second degree of consanguinity to a candidate running for office in the election, and another person makes an objection to his or her service to the County Board of Election Commissioners within 10 calendar days after the posting the list of officials. So if they're second degree and somebody objects within 10 days.
And that starts out talking about election officials,
It
but
does.
in that language towards the end, it specifically mentioned election commission.
Yeah, this is, a person shall not serve as an election official. You're right. County Board of Election Commissioners. Yeah, you're right. It's inconsistent, but I agree. But also I agree with, we should have that as.
We should.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're all looking at the same requirements, same law.
No, sure, it's good. I don't think there's any question based on that.
And I have no doubt in my mind that we're not going to have any, under the table or things going on, but,
we're not blocking up those glass panels during election.
I mean, everything's public, you know,
Yeah,
people should come to all the meetings. It's all public.
exactly, yeah.
so.
Okay,
What do you-
is everybody comfortable?
Yes.
I don't know that we need to do anything, but I didn't want there to start to be conversations that, and I'll just name, that Debbie is related to a candidate that's going to be running. I didn't want there to start to be any type of conversation that the commission, A, wasn't aware of it, or I didn't make you aware of it, and that we were trying to hide something.
Absolutely.
And that's the furthest thing that we would want to do. We want to be open and transparent about everything that we do, and that it's social media. Is what concerns me more than anything else, is I don't want to lose the trust from the public, and how we run our elections, because we work so hard to try and maintain that trust. And, as soon as I kind of became aware of it, I was like, okay, we need to get ahead,
Address it now.
so that it does, so we're not having to answer to someone who brings it up to us, or the commission isn't having to be blindsided by it and say, did you know?
Yeah.
Are you concerned, that we've addressed it head on? And, you know, I have zero concerns about anything that would happen in our office in regards to the integrity of the election.
Well, and we also, as you have already mentioned, Debbie is retiring but coming back later. And I mean, that's an unusual situation in itself, which is easy to conjure all kinds of, oh, well, you know why she's coming back, you know? And dealing with it this far in advance gives you the timeline that should not be argued with.
So here's a question, Madam Chairman. Should this commission or possibly address this early with some sort of a statement that we see this, we know the situation exists. Here's what it is. We are going to follow this regulation and that way we put it on record. Do we need to put it on record?
We're on record.
Okay.
We're on video, we're on audio that we have
Okay.
addressed it. I feel like that's appropriate
Okay.
and adequate.
Okay.
Would you?
No, I agree. I feel like, look, this is a small state in a
Yeah.
big county in the state, but it's a small county. People are related to other people. If somebody has a problem with it, the law provides an
Right.
opportunity for them to make an objection. So I
And
just
that
feel
has
like,
happened.
yeah, I feel like we should, my thought is just, we've acknowledged it on, you know, at a meeting, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Unless somebody makes an
So
objection.
then the other question is, if someone does make an objection, are you well prepared to operate the election without Debbie on board?
Yes, and we'll be making contingency plans for that. It will be a huge loss to us during that 2 weeks of early vote and election night. It will be a massive loss. to
Yeah.
us. But I am not gonna put my head in the sand and pretend that things aren't the way things are. And we will start to make a contingency plan for if for some reason, she was not available to us. Okay, yeah, but it would be a huge loss. Yes.
Satisfied my questions, I think we're okay.
Okay,
Cool.
all right, other business? Anything? Are we good?
We're good.
Okay, we're
All
adjourned.
right, thank you guys.